بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد في الأولين وصل عليه في الآخرين وصل عليه عند الملأ الأعلى إلى يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. رب زدني علما وفهما وألحقني بالصالحين. رب يسر ولا تعسر. رب تمم بالخير. I begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I ask Him to send His peace, His blessings upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family members, his companions, and all of those who followed his way of life. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the beginning of this lecture, to make us from those who understand about the life of the Prophet, and also they implement their understanding in their daily lives. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us understand the life of the Prophet in the best possible way, to enlighten our path throughout these sessions, and to make us from those who will be meeting with him inshallah in paradise. Ameen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. I also use the opportunity to ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to bless with His mercy all of those good writers, all of those scholars who wrote with sincerity about the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and all our teachers and the mashayikhs who taught us, who raised us with the love of the Prophet alaihi salatu wasalam. The first question that everybody will ask before even getting to know the life of the Prophet is, why study the life of the Prophet? Why is it important for a believer to study the life of the Prophet? And I think the answer is very natural. It's natural for the person who reads the Quran often. It is natural for the person who is close to the hadith, to the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to understand who the Creator is. Because the Prophet ﷺ came to this world in order to introduce to us our Creator, in order to introduce to us the one who sent him with the Risalah. And also, studying his life, we also come to love Allah, and we also come to love the Prophet. Because there is no way for a person who comes to study the life and not to fall in love with his life, with his personality, and also fall in love more with the Creator as well, fall in love with the companions, fall in love with the righteous deeds. Sometimes there are certain mindsets that may not be balanced enough, and when they read the life of the Prophet, they read it with different intention. They're looking for trouble, they're looking for mistakes. And when they hear that this person was murdered during this life, or this war took place during his life, their mind tells them, here it is, I got something negative. So this is their imbalanced mindset, this is their intention as well. They're not reading his life in order to benefit, but they're reading in order to find out something that they consider it to be a mistake. But we know that anybody who reads the life of the Prophet ﷺ in order to find peace in it, in order to find his life as an example for his or her own life, will definitely benefit a lot from it. Will find that guidance, will understand who the Creator is, and so on. So we get to know the Prophet, we get to love him, we get to know Allah, we get to love him, the companions, and above all, we get to reflect the personality of the Prophet ﷺ in our lives. So we're not increasing his virtues, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has increased his virtues in the Quran. This is an important point. We're not, by us studying his life, it doesn't mean that we are increasing his virtues. وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already blessed him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already forgave his sins. Surah Al-Fath, Surah Al-Ahzab, and many other surahs. The virtues of the Prophet are very very clear. But by studying his seerah, by studying his life, we get to benefit because we embody those examples in our own personal lives. And we go hand to hand with the ayah of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرِ. Indeed, you have the best example in the life of the Prophet. So by us following his seerah, by learning about his seerah, we embody those positive qualities that the Prophet had. We live according to those, and as a result, we earn Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure. So this is a pathway also to paradise. So in other words, learning his seerah, learning his life, is a very essential and crucial science among the Islamic sciences. So today, inshallah, I'm going to talk about the early writers of the biography of the Prophet ﷺ and contemporary scholars who wrote about his life, and also the situation of the world when he came in. And when we say situation of the world, I will talk about the place where he came, Arabia. I will talk about India at that time, about Persian Empire, and also about the Roman or the Byzantine Empire. These were like centers of civilization. I want to mention this from the beginning, that there are also some people who, through their work, they try to classify certain hadith as da'if, as weak hadith. And because they classify those hadith in such a manner, they would remove completely those hadiths from the books of seerah. And as a result of that, they bring the life of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, in such a way that is very dry. And again, classifying those hadiths as da'if, as weak, it is their own classifications or their own scholars. Not that all the scholars agree with that classification of the hadith, but they do. And as a result of that, you have objections between the scholars on certain things from the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, on certain topics. So you have certain scholars who would agree with something, and the others they would disagree because they say this is da'if, while the others they say it is at least hasan hadith. So these problems may arise, and you may see them as the other subjects in Islamic sciences. You know, they're present in other subjects as well. So this is the same phenomenon happening with the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. And some of them, they go to such an extent where they even deny the miracles of Rasulullah ﷺ. They go to that extent where they say that the Prophet was simply a man who came with a message, and that's it. It was just like you and me, like anybody else. He came with that message. He did not perform any miracles, but his miracle was the Quran, they say, and that's it, end of the story. And this is a problematic thing because not everything can be rationalized. And not everything, it doesn't mean that, okay, I don't understand something and I think it's impossible. That's my approach and that's what I think. It doesn't mean that necessarily it's going to be like that. Because we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, can cause any miracle. Something that we think it will never happen, but it can happen. And some of the things we don't even understand. We might think that we're rational enough, but we may not even understand. If you would ask a person 1,000 years ago about the moon rotating around the earth, he would say, are you crazy? This doesn't make sense. Why? Because science did not reach a certain place, a certain state where it's able to explain these phenomena that happens. So it's the same thing with the human today too. It doesn't mean that we have reached the pinnacle of rationality or the pinnacle of sciences for certain things for us to make sense. No. We may not even understand how is that performed. And sometimes even the laws of the nature can be even bended in order for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cause a miracle to happen. Ibrahim alayhi salam went into the fire. He was thrown into the fire. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bended the laws of the nature in order for this to be a miracle, and in order for these people to say, you know what, this is impossible. So if you're going to strip away the miracles of the Prophet, then you're bringing dryness to his personality. You bring dryness to his personality, and you're just trying to make him as just a normal human being who had nothing special. Therefore, people, they do not see the Prophet as someone who was really special. So there are consequences, there are negative consequences for stripping the Prophet ﷺ away from these virtues and stripping him away from these realities that he came with these miracles, with these mu'jizats. So it is done intentionally. It is done intentionally in order to remove the love, respect, the honor from the believers towards their Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ يُوحَى إِلَيَّ. Say, addressing to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, say that I am a human just like you. In other words, I have eyes, I have mouth, I have ears, I walk, I talk, I sleep. I'm a human being. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يُوحَى إِلَيَّ, regarding the Prophet, I am the one who revelation is being descending down upon. So he's receiving the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is yes a human, but not like the other humans. Because we do not receive the revelation from God as the Prophet did. We didn't receive the Quran. We didn't go to Isra and Mi'raj like the Prophet did. We didn't see Jibreel alayhi salam. We didn't have a meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the Prophet did. Therefore, he is the Sayyid al-Bashar. He is the best of the humankind. And the poet expressed beautifully these couplets by saying, بَلْ هُوَ يَاقُوتَةٌ وَالنَّاسُ كَالْحَجَرِ. He says, he is like a piece of diamond. He is like a diamond stone, while the other humans, they are like stones, like normal stones. And this is what we have to keep in mind, and also in our hearts. The respect, the honor, understanding the virtues of the Prophet compared to the rest of the humankind. So this way we look at him as somebody who was specially sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most beloved of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the best of the humankind, and the best of all the prophets that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ever sent. When we talk about the history, his mother, his grandmother, his grandfather, his great-grandfather, and you go back all the way to Adam alayhi salam, it is known, and according to a prophetic statement as well, that there was no zina, there is no adultery of his ajdad, or the people from his genealogy. All of the genealogy came from a pure relation between husband and wife. I will introduce to you some of the early biographers. They were from the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, those who wrote his biography, the seerah. Among them, I would mention Urwa bin Zubayr al-Awwam. Urwa was the son of Zubayr al-Awwam, and he also was a companion of the Prophet ﷺ. Aban bin Uthman, this is the son of Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu, also wrote about the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wahab ibn Munabbih, Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri, and when I'm mentioning these names, these are from the companions, from the tabi'in, tabi'in, during this period of time. And unfortunately, none of these writings remained, but they got lost in the history. I read that there is also a piece of the writing of one of these great early scholars, Wahab ibn Munabbih, that exists in Germany, the manuscript itself from the earlier times, but it's just a piece of that. But then later on, you had other biographers, and the most famous one of them is Ibn Ishaq. Ibn Ishaq wrote the book called Al-Maghazi, but even this one did not survive the original text. Then you had Ibn Hisham, who wrote an abridged version of the Al-Maghazi of Ibn Ishaq, and we have that in our hands today. It's called the Seerah of Ibn Hisham, rahimahullah. And this is the most, I would say, this is the most popular book on the Seerah of the Prophet. And sometimes people refer to it as the Seerah of Ibn Ishaq. You hear that often. Ibn Ishaq is the original one who wrote, but then you have 50 years later, Ibn Hisham who wrote the abridged version, condensed and added more to it. It's called Ibn Ishaq because the base, the essence of this book is from Ibn Ishaq. That's why sometimes people refer to it still as Seerah of Ibn Ishaq. And also it's very popular from the early generations, Tabari, Ibn Sa'd with his Tabaqat of Ibn Sa'd is very famous. And the Tabaqat, they're not only focused on the life of the Prophet, but it also includes the life of the companions and so on. So it is in volumes, it comes in volumes. Imam al-Dhahabi also wrote about the life of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. It's a book about 400 to 500 pages closely. And then throughout the years, throughout the centuries, there are so many. I mean, we're talking about 1,400 years, so imagine the scholars, because here, as I said, it's an essential subject in Islam, so almost all the scholars, they would write about the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, but among the contemporary scholars nowadays, the books that are very well known, the first one is the book of Imam al-Ghazali, Imam Muhammad al-Ghazali, the contemporary scholar, not the old one, but the one who passed away recently in the 90s. He wrote a book about the fiqh of the seerah, the jurisprudence of the seerah, of the biography of the Prophet ﷺ, where he incorporates the jurisprudence with the biography together. So there are many great lessons that we can learn, from that, from every aspect of the biography of the seerah. Together with that, you have another book which is very famous, and I'm going to use some parts of it even today, inshallah, from Sheikh Saeed Ramadan al-Bouti, who was a great scholar from Syria, from Damascus, who wrote in many different disciplines of Islam, but also wrote the great book Fiqh al-Sirah as well, the jurisprudence of the biography of the Prophet ﷺ. And that book, I have it with me here. It's in English language, translated as well. This is what it looks like: the jurisprudence of the prophetic biography, the brief history of the rightly guided caliphate as well. So it has very, little information about the four Khulafa al-Rashidun. It's translated by Nancy Roberts and revised by Anas al-Rifa'i, Dar al-Fikr. This is in Syria. And the translation is a great translation. So also you have in English language, with English-speaking authors, you have Martin Lings, and this is the most popular in the English-speaking world. The most popular book about the seerah of the Prophet is the Martin Lings, and it's an excellent book. Lately they have been pointing out a couple mistakes here and there, which nothing is perfect except the book of Allah, the Quran. Very famous also, being written in Arabic, and I don't know if it's translated in English or not. It is Nur al-Yaqeen from Sheikh Muhammad al-Khudari, contemporary scholar to pass away last century. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala show mercy upon all of them. And many others. Now, these what I mentioned to you are books based on the biography of the Prophet, including all of his life, from the time when he was born all the way to the time when he passed away, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And throughout the centuries, there are also those scholars who wrote about different angles of the seerah. In other words, they did not cover the whole seerah, but they wrote on different angles. For example, you have books being written on the shama'il, on the appearance of the Prophet ﷺ, how he looked, how he ate, how he talked, how he walked. The most famous one of them is the Shama'il Muhammadiyya from Imam al-Tirmidhi. And there are a lot of other scholars who did great job, amazing job in writing the Shama'il, but that's the most popular one. Also you have from a different angle a book talking about the character of the Prophet. Not just the the physical appearance, but also about the character, which is focused mainly on the character. I'm not saying that the Shama'il doesn't have parts from the character of the Prophet. It has to, but it's mainly focused on the appearance, physical appearance. You have this other book, which is mainly focused on the character of the Prophet, and it is called the Book of Shifa, of Qadi Iyad, the very famous scholar who wrote this, the Book of Shifa, the Book of Cure. In other words, reading the life of the Prophet ﷺ, a person finds cure. Talking from different angles, they also wrote on the Fada'il of Nabi ﷺ, about the virtues of the Prophet ﷺ. And among those scholars who talked about the Fada'il, virtues, is the great scholar Imam Qadi Yusuf Nabahani. 40 hadiths about the virtues of the Prophet ﷺ. He wrote so many books on the Prophet, but this book, since we're talking about the Fada'il, the virtues, he wrote 40 hadiths. So he compiled together 40 hadiths on his virtues. And that book, oh, you have it here? MashaAllah. So this is the book, The Virtues of the Prophet ﷺ and His Nation. So it is translated in English as well. Great. MashaAllah. And in Arabic it's called Al-Arba'in fi Fada'il Sayyid al-Mursaleen. There are books, for example, about only his miracles. And no matter how much we talk about him, we would never be able to really express his true personality, because he is above our words. His personality is above what we can talk about him. He's above our description. But may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at least through our effort, help us get close to him by getting to know him little by little, even though we might be limited in our understanding and our knowledge about him. But may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through that little effort, may He bring us close to him, inshallah. So now, getting to, talking about the world before his coming, I will state to you some paragraphs here from the jurisprudence of the prophetic biography by Sheikh Sayyid Ramadan al-Bouti. He says that during the period under discussion, two states shared dominion over the civilized world, namely Persia and Byzantine Empire, followed by Greece and India. As for Persia, it was the arena of various conflicting religious and philosophical persuasions. When we're talking about Persia, there was a lot of conflicts between the existing religious doctrines at that time, and a lot of problems with their philosophical approaches. Also, the ruling class had embraced Zoroastrianism, whose philosophy included a preference for a man marrying his mother, his daughter, or his sister. So now you can understand that, and we're talking about the elite class embracing this so-called the faith of fire worshipping. And as a result of that, they have declined tremendously in morals, family structure. They have reached that point where, a man is marrying his own mother, or his own daughter, or his own sister. In addition, there was Mazdaims, which according to Imam Shahristani, approved the practice of making both woman and money into the common property of a group of men, who would share them in common just as they would share water, fire, and pasture land. So you can see it had no dignity at all in their eyes. It was just like money. Everybody can share money, everybody can share women. This is how it was in the Persian Empire. When it comes to the Byzantine Empire, now the problem with Byzantine Empire, he says, which was dominated by the colonialist spirit. You can see that colonialist spirit was back even hundreds and hundreds of years ago, before the Prophet ﷺ as well. So he says, this empire was dominated by the colonialist spirit, was embroiled in a religious dispute with the Christians of Syria and the Coptics of Egypt. Major disputes. The issue of Trinity as well was before the Prophet ﷺ. You had scholars among the Christians from the East who disagreed with the introduction of Trinity. They also relied on its military power and imperialistic designs in a remarkable adventure whose aim was to develop and manipulate Christianity in ways which promised to satisfy its deep-seated aspirations and longings. When it comes to India, the Shaykh quotes a statement made by Dr. Abu al-Hasan al-Nadwi, who wrote a very famous book about Islam and the world, or what the world lost since the decline of the Muslims. It's a very interesting book, very, very good book to read. And he talks in details about the topic that I'm talking today about. He goes into so many details how the world was before the Prophet came in. Dr. Al-Buti here mentions the statement from Abu al-Hasan al-Nadwi. He says that writers on the history of India agree that this was the most decadent period religiously. In other words, it was the worst century for religion and religious people. It was going down, in other words. And also morally and socially was that which commenced at the beginning of the 6th century AD, right at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. The problem with India was that you had, to begin with, you had 3 different levels. And even nowadays they have those levels. You have those that are created to worship God and to be religious leaders and all of that. Then you have the warriors, the fighters and all that. Then you have the other society, which is the servants, pretty much the servants. In other words, the slaves. The moment you're born, as long as you belong to that family, you're born in that category of people. So even if you're a genius, even if you have special abilities and all that, these are not recognized at all. So there's injustice from the time when a person is born. And the human abilities are not recognized from the beginning. When you look at the woman in the society, exactly, there was again another problem in old India as well. Like you see in the Persian Empire and many other places around the world, even in the Arabian Peninsula, it was the same thing too. Very similar. A man who would die, for example, the moment he would die, the woman would belong to his brother. It would become like a servant of his own brother if he had brothers. Or it can go to other people. Like somebody who it can be passed on. So no freedom, no choice of choosing a husband or anything like that. It's like a piece of property or a part of the wealth. You read that sometimes a woman would also, when the man would be burned, she would also jump and commit suicide as well. Because she knew what was going to happen later on. She knew that she was going to live a miserable life. So why go through all of that instead of just burning herself and just committing suicide to begin with? So you can see this, these different levels in the society. You can see this injustice towards genders in the society as well. So it gives you a picture of how the world was during those years. Now, coming to the Arabian Peninsula, and we might talk a little bit more about this one, because Prophet ﷺ came into this society. So we want to know more about them and the situation, so we can have a better understanding of why it was needed for the Prophet to come during that time. That's number one. And partially we answered the question by mentioning to you the current condition in the Byzantine Empire, in the Persians, in India and other places. So inshallah, also talking about the Arabian Peninsula, we will elaborate more on the question or better answer the question why the Prophet ﷺ was sent during that time. And also why was he sent in this particular place in Arabia? And why not in India? Or in Roman Empire, or in Persian Empire, or somewhere else. Arabs, as a lot of you may know, they lived and still live in some parts of the Arab world in a kind of a clan environment where you have huge families living together in one place. And the best example of that would be the Bedouin lifestyle. And overall, they would depend mainly on goats and sheep. They had something that it distinguished them from other places was the respect they had for their chief. The respect they had for their tribesmen, the chief of the tribe. And also, they were known for their revenge. The main city was the city of Mecca in Arabia. The city of Medina, Yathrib, was also another. Yemen during those days was very popular in that peninsula there. And in cities, their main thing would be trading. Main profession, especially for man, would be trading. Going to different places, far countries like Bilad al-Sham and so on. Now, when it comes to their faith, the different tribes, they had different faiths, different systems of belief. You would find that majority of them, they were idol worshippers. Among these idol worshippers, you had different kinds. Like, for example, you had those who worshipped idols made either by stone or wood and all that. Or you had other people who worshipped sun, moon. They worshipped these celestial bodies, stars. That's also considered idol worshipping as well. But also you had little pockets here and there where you had Christian believers. Like, for example, a good example of that is the cousin of Sayyidatuna Khadija, the wife of the Prophet ﷺ. He was a Christian believer. You also had pockets here and there of those who called themselves Jews. And some of them, like for example the Jews of Medina, you had major 3 tribes living in Medina who came to the city of Medina in search of the new prophet. In search of the new prophet, because this is what their book was telling them. In a certain place where there's date palms and so on. So it gave them the whole description of the city of Medina. So when they reached there, when they saw that, they said, this is a place that our teachings, they talk about. The coming of the new prophet right here. So they refused him later on when he came to Medina. Some of them accepted him, but some of them refused him because they would not agree with the fact that he was somebody who was not a Jew. Even though, according to some narratives, they knew that he was going to be from Mecca, from the tribe of Quraysh and all of that, coming from the same lineage. They knew. Yet when he came to the city of Medina, a lot of them refused because of their pride of who they are. It goes back again to Shaitan, to Satan. You created me from fire, while you created Adam a.s. from clay. But also beside these systems, or these different faiths they had, there was also the Hanif, which was the faith of Ibrahim a.s. and Ismail a.s. As you know, at the beginning, when Ibrahim came with his son in Mecca, he was a messenger of God and he was inspired by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was the muwahhid, he was the one who believed in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Quran talks about this, مَا كَانَ إِبْرَاهِيمٌ يَهُودِيًّا وَلَا نَصْرَانِيًّا. Ibrahim was not a Jew, he was not a Christian either, but he was a Hanif. So there were some followers of what Ibrahim and Ismail left behind. And during those early times, they used to follow the religion of Ibrahim and Ismail alayhim as-salam. But then later on, there was the introduction of the idols that came from other places. It came to Arabian Peninsula, and people, they started not worshipping these idols only. I mean, they knew, even the Arabs during the time of the Prophet, they knew that there is God. They knew that there is Ilah. They knew that there is one ultimate creator, who created everything. But then, in order for them to have rain, for example, they would pray to a certain idol, and that idol would intercede on their behalf. And these are all things mentioned in the Quran as well. So they would intercede on their behalf in order for them to have rain. It's as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't know their condition, that they need rain at that time. Or in order to have more rizq, more sustenance, they would pray to this certain idol in order for their rizq, their sustenance to be increased. And the Kaaba at the time of the Prophet ﷺ had over 360 idols. Over 360 idols. So each tribe, each family started having their own idols there. Now, some people, as I told you, they remained on this deen, Hanif, on this pure religion of what Ibrahim a.s. and Ismail a.s. left behind. And among them was Zayd bin Amr bin Nufayl, a very famous personality who used to reject eating the meat that was not slaughtered in the name of God, but it was slaughtered in the name of the idols. He rejected to worship what they used to worship. He used to believe in one God only. He would go to the Kaaba, he would turn his back towards the Kaaba that was full with idols, and he would say to the people, "O people, remember the religion of your forefathers. Remember the oneness of God." He would preach on that. However, he was very limited in sources. He was very limited in number of people, so he could not go that much with preaching and spreading, trying to keep at least alive the religion of Ibrahim and Ismail alayhi salam. And among things that he used to do, for example, he used to take these little girls who were about to be murdered by their own parents, by the father, for example. And he would raise them, he would go to the father and would say, "Can I take and raise her?" And he would raise these little girls. And when they reached a certain age, he would say to the parents, "I have raised them. This is your child." So he would play the role of the parent. Not in one occasion, but in so many occasions. If they wanted, they would keep them. If not, then he would still raise them until they would get ready for marriage and all of that. His son was Sa'id bin Zayd. Sa'id bin Zayd became one of the great companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because this was implanted in his heart already from his father. So he became a great companion of the Prophet, and he was, as a matter of fact, from those al-ashra al-mubashira bil-jannah, among those 10 companions who were given glad tidings of paradise, even though they were still alive in this world. While they were alive in this world, Allah, through the Prophet, gave them the glad tidings of paradise. Now, we will get a little bit more, and this will be the last thing that we will talk today, inshallah. We'll get a little bit more into why that place in particular. Now we understand the social problems, we understand how they were. Now, why in particular about the Arabian Peninsula? To begin with, I believe that these other countries or societies, they were way larger than Arabian societies. Not only about the big number of people, but also the human mind has reached to certain levels that they started being kind of degraded, and their mind became so full of lies and so full of philosophy and different systems and faith and this and that. They reached to those pinnacles to a point where they were very tired. Even if a true person would come to them, they would not even believe. They have lost manners, they have lost a lot of virtues. So they have been degraded. So yes, we see also in the Arabian Peninsula almost the same problem, but they're very kind of raw. There is still some goodness left from Sayyidina Ibrahim and Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salam. That's why it was a better place for Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to come to Arabian Peninsula. Looking at it from a different angle, think about the Western world at that time and think about the Eastern world. Western world at that time was not Norwegia, England, America. No, this was not the Western world. The Western world at that time was Roman Empire, Turkey nowadays, Syria, Lebanon, these countries around here, Eastern Europe. This was the Western world. And the Eastern world, China, You also had India. But if you look at China and India and all of these countries, and if you look at the Western world, then Arabia, it falls right in the middle. So it would have been like the center of the world back in those centuries. Now, when you analyze the atmosphere in the Western world, you see that they were all about materialism, colonial mindsets, and all of that we just described earlier. And when you look at the Eastern world, also there is a decline on manners and morals, but they have reached some levels considered like levels of spirituality above the limits, and they are out of their minds, out of their own, the prism of their own religion. Even if it used to be a true religion that came down to them before, they have went, into extremes, considering that to be a part of their spirituality. Everything was a god to them. They started worshipping the organs, the sexual organs of the human body. They start going crazy in their belief, kind of. So let me just put it this way, straightforward. Going crazy in their own spirituality, while this was going crazy in the materialism and all that. So you had two poles. And then Islam, as the deen of balance, came right in the middle of the world at that time, to balance between that spirituality and this materialism that the world was suffering from. But also, it was chosen because it was an environment, Sheikh Al-Bouti says, it was an environment which had not been affected by the neighboring civilizations, and whose ways of thinking had not been complicated by their wayward philosophies. Very similar to what I mentioned to you earlier. The Prophet ﷺ was coming with the truth and was very simple in his preaching. He did not come with a philosophy. He did not complicate things, but he made things very easy for the people. Now imagine if he would have been in a different society, how hard would have been. But he found the companions kind of raw people. Yes, they had a lot of mistakes, they had a lot of things, but still there was some goodness in them. The centuries, they have not tired them, and they have not brought them to such a level where they cannot handle anything. No, they were different from the other societies. That's why he just worked with them, with his true inspiration that came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and with his good personality that Allah raised him. And he made out of those raw people, he made them leaders in righteousness. In the Holy Quran, there is an ayah that says, وَالَّذِي بَعَثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ رَسُولًا. He is the one who resurrected from these, or who brought forth from these ummiyin, which means illiterate people, Rasula, a messenger. Illiterate people, a messenger. Minhum, from them. يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, and purify them. وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ, and teach them the book, which is the Quran, and also the wisdom. وَإِنْ كَانُوا مِنْ قَبْلَ فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ, and even if before they used to be in a clear error, the society in other words, or these companions, even though they used to be in a clear error, Prophet ﷺ purified their souls. We'll leave it here inshallah today. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to shower with His peace and His blessings the Prophet ﷺ, his family members, his companions, and all of us. Ameen. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Bismillah ar-Rahman